Module 3, Grandiosity in NPD. In the last module, I described grandiosity as the sum of the traits. This is because all other traits exist to feed grandiosity. They are in orbit of grandiosity, circling it and reinforcing it. It's the central trait, and it's more intrapersonal than interpersonal, meaning it doesn't need other people to exist. It's always there. But the other traits serve to feed this sense of superiority, which is completely unfounded. Grandiosity is a protective mechanism against a very fragile ego. I often describe the narcissistic ego as infantile, unable to protect itself, weak and fearful, needing others to protect it, feed it, and generally nurture it. However, unlike the infant, the person with NPD is aware of, to a degree, the fact that this dependency wounds others and has no regard for that. Their need is more important than the harm the need causes. This is the paradox of grandiosity. It appears powerful and dominant, superior and assertive, whether it's in overt or covert expression, yet it masks deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and shame. This dynamic creates a constant tension between the grandiose self-image and underlying insecurities. Clinical observation shows us that grandiosity operates on multiple levels. There's the cognitive level, where individuals maintain beliefs about their exceptional status. Then there's the emotional level, where grandiose fantasies provide protection against painful feelings. Ultimately, grandiosity is there to regulate self-esteem, protecting the person with NPD from the reality that they are a flawed human being, just like anyone else. The behavioural manifestations of grandiosity are equally complex. Whilst seemingly obvious in overt expressions, covert expressions are a lot more subtle, but very much there. Grandiosity can be characterised by a number of different behaviours. 1. Exaggerated self-image, believing they're of superior talent, skill, or intelligence. 2. Fantasies of power, wealth, social status, and influence. 3. Unable to accept criticism or feedback. 4. Devaluing anyone who challenges the sense of superiority. All these behaviours protect the idea that the individual is better than everyone else, and they all exist in both overt and covert grandiosity. Before we break down the difference, I want to make you aware that there is a nuance to all of this too. Grandiosity is subjective. What one person views as giving them superiority over others, another will not. For example, it might not be that wealth gives a person with NPD superiority, but having multiple children does. In that instance, it's the burden they carry that gives them a sense of superiority over others. Let's move on and break down the difference. Overt grandiosity. The stereotypical narcissist, loud, entitled, and domineering. They exaggerate achievements or fabricate success. If lacking material proof, they craft narratives of moral superiority. I could have had it, but I chose differently. Or victimhood. I was sabotaged. They are never at fault. This expression of grandiosity can manifest in multiple areas of life. In the workplace, they may overstate their contributions, taking credit for others' work or undermining colleagues to position themselves as superior. In personal relationships, they dominate conversations, dismiss differing perspectives, and demand admiration without reciprocation. In social settings, they present an idealized version of themselves, boasting about their accomplishments and devaluing others to assert dominance. Covert grandiosity. The same superiority complex, just hidden. They downplay ambitions while still pursuing status. Covert grandiosity often relies on motivational empathy, appearing vulnerable or in need to maintain dominance. Their goal remains the same, to be the most important person in someone else's mind, even through victimhood. Unlike the overt narcissist, the covert narcissist may not outwardly proclaim their greatness, but they deeply believe in their exceptional nature. They may present themselves as misunderstood geniuses, unappreciated talents, or noble sufferers carrying the burdens of others. Their self-importance is reinforced by how much others owe them for their sacrifices. A key feature of covert grandiosity is passive entitlement. While an overt narcissist might demand special treatment outright, a covert narcissist expects it subtly, feeling deeply wounded or betrayed when others fail to recognize their supposed importance. They position themselves as martyrs, using guilt to control those around them. In both traits, we often see that expectations of others and the treatment they deserve are unrealistic and often fluid. If someone meets expectations, the bar moves and the narcissist is seemingly never satisfied. There is a caveat to this, though. If they see someone who they think will increase their status, whether socially or within their workplace, they will defer to them, pedestal them, while simultaneously trying to equalize with them. It's clever and calculated. As a result, the impact of grandiosity on relationships is significant. It often creates a pattern of idealization and devaluation, where others are seen as either special and worthy of association, or as inferior and dismissible. This is true for both overt and covert expressions of grandiosity. It's this disparity in treatment that makes it very difficult for those being exploited and manipulated and abused to expose the behaviour. I've lost count of the times a client has said to me, "Everyone loves them. They wouldn't believe me if I told them," when discussing the narcissist in their life. As a side note, I point out that this often isn't true. When we zoom out and look at the quality of the relationships the narcissist has, we often see that there isn't any substance to them, or that those who remain steadfast are also being manipulated and abused and are too afraid of the reaction to challenge the behaviour. And that's the difficulty with the impact of grandiose behaviour. It deliberately convinces the person being victimised by it, but that they're alone in their perception. It isolates them into believing that they are the only one who sees it, and that were they to challenge it, they would be excluded as a result. Unfortunately, this can be true, particularly in family units. However, in less enmeshed systems such as work or friendships, speaking up often reveals a communal discomfort with the behaviour. That being said, when grandiosity is challenged, it can be very dangerous for the challenger. So desperate is the need to retain superiority over others that any perceived challenge or threat to it is dealt with through devaluation of the challenger. This could be small digs or humiliations in the moment of the threat, or it could be a sustained smear campaign. A smear campaign is where the person with NPD does everything they can to annihilate the challenger, destroying their character with absolutely no compunction. They don't hesitate to lie, twist truths to their advantage. They will even seem to take responsibility while somehow still blaming the challenger for their behaviour. "I know I wasn't kind, but they just wound me up so much," for example. The smear campaign can be both overt and covert, short-lived or sustained. Often, we see narcissistic parents creating smear campaigns against their children from almost the moment they're conceived sometimes. It's insidious and leaves the victim feeling bewildered, confused, and powerless. When it comes to challenging someone with NPD, we have to approach it very carefully to minimize this hideously destructive behavior. Grandiosity is the driving force behind NPD, the core belief that sustains all other narcissistic traits. It exists independently of others, but is constantly reinforced through manipulation and control. Whether overt or covert, grandiosity distorts relationships, holds unrealistic expectations, and punishes those who challenge it. Understanding how grandiosity functions is crucial in recognizing and responding to narcissistic behavior. Now, let's explore how the other traits work together to uphold grandiosity and manipulate others.